That's where we're at. Okay, cool. I'm glad to know that we have gotten to that level of political discourse. All conservatives truly do have a breeding kink. Alrighty, so apparently we have a thing to talk about. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Kayleigh McEnany, but we got to talk about apparently a need to breed Christian babies. That's a thing. As if children had the ability to determine literally as soon as they popped out of the Vagubu their religion of choice. That's totally a thing that happens. Anyway, fan art section first, and then we'll get into that. Instant cringe? It sounds like infant cringe to me. Anywho, the first one we have here is from Pernia. Suris on the Gris swimsuit bandwagon. Pernia, when you draw my character, do I have to, like, talk to a doctor about, like, weird feelings of the crotch? I'm kidding. But also, it's a very, very good... This is why I commissioned Pernia for stuff. The next one we have is from Ink. Suris telling Timer-kun to go fuck himself. Yeah, true. This subathon was less brutal on me than the last one, to be fair. To be fair. The last one we have is from Corey Meadows. Made my first fan art of Suris. It is of his old avatar. I hope you like it. It took about 30 to 40 minutes, and I haven't drawn in a while. Well, you know what? I love it. It is awesome. How did the subathon end? The subathon ended more with a whimper and less with a bang. I'm not even going to lie. I purposefully stayed up past the point of exhaustion so that the subathon would end like at like 3 or 4 in the morning when there would be fewer people on to potentially push the subathon further in. It's not that I don't need the funds. It's that I don't need the mental health problems. That's an escapade I don't want to deal with when I don't have to. Anyways, as always, everybody, thank you all for the fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, dear God, what is this? Why? Why? Let's take a read at this lovely article titled Kayleigh McEnany wants more Christian babies. It's an overt call out to racist paranoia. Now, it's very easy to come to the conclusion without reading the article that this feels like great replacement bullshit, because when you say we need to have more Christian babies, there's a part of that a Nick Fuentes would probably say, but somebody who was a congresswoman under Trump might not have said. One of them is speaking to an audience of overt racists, and the other one is speaking to an audience of closeted ones. But let's go ahead and read the article itself. One defining aspect of the Trump era is the way it has enabled far-right arguments to slip into the mainstream, most notably with the migration of white and Christian nationalist ideologies, formerly relegated to the outermost margins of conservatism, into the center of the Republican Party. This is definitely true. You've been able to see this, well, again, literally, my representative in fucking District 14 in Georgia went to a white nationalist rally, the America First convention hosted by Nick Fuentes himself. And the fallout on that has not, like, that hasn't been newsworthy, apparently. Like, here where I live, nobody fucking talks about it. Nobody even knows it happened. It's just not a thing anybody here cares about. And I live in the district this woman represents. You'd think it would be news here, but no. Then again, this is the same place where people say that it was the war of northern aggression, and totally just to take our other shit. Also, Smiling GM. Really? I have to talk about this shit, and you decide now is the time to call war? You've literally chosen this moment of all the moments you could have. Granted, Granted, in my opinion, there is no good moment for you to drop 50,001 channel points. The amount of moments that are worthwhile for that kind of behavior sit firmly in the negatives. But since you've done it anyway, oh well. Oh well. Rosalind Faye, I think I did get the Ara Ara earlier, but just in case, if that helps. Also, Fiat Fier, thank you very much for redeeming your points from. Oh well. Oh well. Alrighty. Now that the cringe is out of the way, I keep getting comments from people who are just like, you need to stop with the anime noises. I can't watch you regularly because of them. And to that I say, if you can convince my Twitch audience to stop making me say the anime noises, then maybe you'd have a case. But unfortunately, they are a group of vindictive fuckers who cannot be trusted. So here we are. On Monday night, it happened again. Trump's former White House press secretary, Kayla McEnany, now a co-host of the Fox News show Outnumbered, called for fighting the forces of darkness, which were not clearly delineated, by filling the world with Christian babies. During an interview with conservative Christian actor and activist Kirk Cameron. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Oh boy, that is a long interview. I do not want to watch that whole interview. I don't. So let's not. I will put that link there in the chat. So if anybody here wants to watch an entire hour of that, then you can. I choose not to. For the entirety of her public career, McEnany, who is, or McEnany? I keep on saying McEnany. That extra N is just problem solved. You pronounce it McEnany? It's always creepy to hear people talk like the current generation is just a wash. Yeah. Anywho, let's get back to the article itself. For the entirety of her public career, McEnany, who is described by those who know her as smart and relentlessly ambitious, has made her faith a prominent aspect of her public persona. Raised Southern Baptist, she often tells the story of how, on the day of her first White House press conference, she calmed her nerves by praying, allowing her to step to the podium with this total serenity that was only made possible because of Christ. I'm not going to make any comment on the efficacy of prayer. If it steals your nerves, I guess it steals your nerves. I can't take that away from you. Her predecessor in the Trump White House, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is the daughter of McEnany's former boss, Mike Huckabee, for whom she worked as a Fox News production assistant, counseled her to read a Jesus calling before every press briefing. Sanders gave McEnany a book of her own pre-presser devotionals as inspiration, and McEnany took up the tradition, leading a group prayer with her staff before every media briefing that followed. She famously wore a cross in all of her public appearances, led a weekly Bible study for the Trump campaign, and in 2021 published her third book, For Such a Time as This, My Faith Journey Through the White House and Beyond, proclaiming that Jesus had installed her in the briefing room. It is amazing that Jesus, being the avatar of an omnipotent deity, somehow makes such poor choices so frequently. Jesus calling is a whole nother can of worms. Yep. I believe that Jesus wanted me to be put in this exact position right here. They say only when they gain the position. Anywho. All that rhetoric might seem par for the course for a Republican operative on the move, but in McEnany's case, it also appears to be sincere. While attending a Catholic girls' school as an adolescent, McEnany wrote a conspicuously evangelical poem about Jesus. I shout his name for he is king, in one of the post-college columns she wrote at Glenn Beck's website, The Blaze. She argued that atheism was the main driving force behind the carnage of World War II. Oh my God. You think atheism is the thing that leads to like rabid anti-Semitism and putting people into camps? Okay, sure. Why not? You think atheism leads people want to go to conquest? Me, you, and the Crusades need to have a conversation about actual fucking history. But anyways, in 2018, McEnany dedicated her second book, The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement, in part to Rachel Scott, the victim of the 1999 Columbine mass shooting, who became a figure of martyrdom to many evangelicals for testifying to her belief in God before she was murdered. At the time of McEnany's promotion to main spokesperson for the Trump administration, writer and religion historian Peter Mansu, who once taught her at Georgetown University, noted that her new role represented the elevation of a uniquely American strand of faith formed by ideas of religious persecution to the highest level of U.S. political influence. Can you imagine that as a conversational talking point? I am so oppressed. Look at all this power I have. I am so oppressed. Look at all of the, look at how I am representative as a majority religion in the nation. I am very oppressed. It reminds me of that, do you remember that Powerpuff Girls episode from like one of the later seasons where Mojo Jojo gets a group of hippies to protect him by screaming that he's oppressed, and every time he does it, the hippies protect him from the Powerpuff Girls? When somebody actually brings up that there's Christian persecution, they bring up their Christian persecution complex here in the U.S., that's what it feels like to me. Not so fast, liberals. Reading on in the article. In her conversation Monday with Cameron on his Trinity Broadcasting Network talk show, Takeaways, another such elevation occurred. Amid a discussion of her career and faith, McEnany declared that Christians have got to be bold. You know, the antidote to darkness is light, and the antidote to a really grim future is filling the world with a lot of Christian babies who could bring that light to the world. So, okay, I get it. Conservatives are not only people who have a breeding kink, but also desperately cling to the idea that they can have a giant impregnation orgy. A giant impregnation orgy where not only are the traits of the mother and father bestowed genetically, but also somehow we can instill religion to you via cum and eggs. Now, I was unaware that we could do this, but apparently conservative science has gotten very far. And we have the ability to impregnate everybody with their religious views. That is a thing we can do now. I was not aware, but we're here now, and I can't stop this bold new reality. But less than a decade ago, that sort of exhortation was primarily heard only in minority religious communities, like the Quiverful movement, a fundamentalist Christian subculture that urges believers to eschew all forms of contraception and have as many children as God chooses to give them, both as a means of demonstrating their pro-life convictions and reclaiming the culture from the left. Honey, them damn liberals are a problem. Let me fucking put my dick in you so we can make conservative babies. Really? That's your argument. That's where we're at. Okay, cool. I'm glad to know that we have gotten to that level of political discourse. All conservatives truly do have a breeding kink. They really do. That movement was guided by the scripture in Psalm 127, like arrows in the hands of a warrior, are sons born in one's youth. Blessed be the man whose quiver is full. We already know about that. Anything else in here that's really important? Doesn't seem to be. It's just talking about how this is like the Quiverful ideology, which it is. For those who don't know, the Quiverful movement is a group of evangelicals that believe that contraception is bad, and that a woman's job is to be a breeding horse, basically. Like, there is nothing for the Quiverful movement. There is no higher position than pregnant and barefoot that a woman could ever achieve. If you happen to be infertile for any variety of reasons, you are useless to that particular sect of religions. Quiverful seems kind of pedo-ish. Oh, the younger and more fertile, the better to many of them. So, yes, cult. I believe Telltale would agree with me that Quiverfuls are definitely a cult. I mean, how the fuck could you have 20 kids if some of them aren't functionally parents? Yeah, which leads to other problems as well. It leads to other problems as well. Those of the... anyway, we're not going to get further into that. The point is, The point is, there's another side of this that needs to be talked about as well. The part of the conversation that doesn't really get brought up here, this is just great replacement ideology. The idea that some group is going to fuck your group into non-existence. That is the core of the great replacement myth. The idea that people of color are going to have more children than you. And so if you don't have the right number of white babies, then the world will no longer have white people and we will become an oppressed minority. Now, it is true that race mixing is going to eventually make it to where it is a lot harder to distinguish between different races of people. But since race is a social construct, I raise you the I don't fucking care card. Oh no, if the world becomes 20% white people instead of 25, do I care? Not really. I don't really care. I don't have a reason to care, and neither should you. Nobody should care. It's a non-issue. As long as human beings are being birthed at a rate that is high enough for societies to sustain itself in some way, shape, or form, that is all you should care about. Having to have specifically more white babies is fucking dumb. But that is the position that gets held via the Great Replacement myth. The need to have more white babies to outfuck the black people, basically. Now, while that is not the exact terminology that is used here, it is Quiverful terminology, which I would say that if you desperately need there to be more people who have your religious ideology in the world, that is another flavor of bad. It's trying to dominate the world either with your race or your religion. It doesn't matter which way you go about it. The mechanics are the same. Sexiest genocide ever. Jesus Christ. They very much practice parentification and abusive training tactics. Said a lot of Quiverfuls follow Michael Purse to train up a child, which is literal child abuse material. Jesus Christ. Rosalind Faye says whiteness is designed to be unattainable. Well, yeah, because here's the thing. Okay, so here's the reason that great replacement ideology is bullshit on its own. One, or is just two reasons. One, there is more genetic diversity between a handful of white people or a handful of black people than most white people have with other black people. You will find more genetic diversity within a singular race than you will find across races in many cases. Almost as if the across races part was a non-fucking issue to begin with. Lady Necro, thank you very much for the 100 bits. There is another aspect to this. The aspect of when you break it down, if a white person has sex with a black person and the baby comes out mixed, what do we call them? Generally speaking, most people will either say mixed or black, but they will never say white. This is kind of a by design thing. This creates this scenario where suddenly having sex outside of your race is a bad thing, according to people who follow the Great Replacement myth, because there is no way to replace the white population outside of whites only breeding with whites. Yeah, the one drop rule. Yep. It is stupid. It's asinine, but it is the ideology. It is the idea that whiteness is pure, and once it is tainted by other flesh, it cannot be fixed. It cannot be untainted. Ignoring the fact that if many of these people took a 23andMe, they would probably find that, oh, actually, somewhere along their lines, some person of color was part of their race. But ignoring that, ignoring all of that, and what is white has kind of changed over the years. In some eras, being Irish was not considered being white, despite, the color of the skin. Again, whiteness to these people is not, hey, are you a Caucasian person? It's more an idea of racial purity that may or may not include Asian people sometimes, depending on how much they're fetishizing them. May or may not include Irish people sometimes. Depends on how they feel that day, kind of. It's all arbitrary and useless. All of it is. Remember, entire generations being awash? This again. Yep. It's the idea that this generation of people are completely worthless outside of their ability to fuck more people inside their arbitrary catalog of people they should be fucking, in order to birth an arbitrary number of people that is always just a few more babies than you currently have, so that we don't get outbred. It is a stupidly asinine and childish view of the world, and yet people like Kayleigh are announcing it full-chested on places like Kirk Cameron's show and also Fox News. Unless you have Aldean blood, then you can become a Titan. But anyway, this is where I throw the conversation back onto you guys over on YouTube. What do you think of this? Because honestly, where I'm concerned, it's a bunch of crap. And speaking of that, I really have to use the restroom. As always, everybody, if you want to support the channel and what I do, you can hop over to the Patreon. That is a wonderful way to support the channel. But past that, there's plenty of other ways. There's a merch store. There's also the link over at Cuddly Octopus. There's also the various sponsors of this channel, DDLG Playground, Drink, Wraith, etc. Outside of that, Mothman's Cousin, thank you for dropping your points for an owl. And with all that said, as always, everyone, insert edit video tagline here.